I, 28F, have worked at the same marketing firm for 6 years. I started as an intern fresh out of college, full of nerves and ambition. I spent years learning, growing, and proving myself. I took on extra projects. I stayed late. I mentored new hires. I did everything right. The position of senior marketing manager was finally opening up, and it had my name written all over it. My boss, Mr. Miller, 54M, had been grooming me for it for the last year. He had told me in my last review that I was the leading candidate. He said my dedication was unmatched. The official announcement was scheduled for the big quarterly meeting. I had already picked out my celebration dinner spot. I had even told my parents, and my mom, Carol, seemed thrilled for me. She said she was proud. She said I deserved it. The day of the meeting arrived. I wore my best suit. I felt a buzz of excitement and confidence. The meeting started like any other. Department heads gave their updates. Sales figures were reviewed. Then Mr. Miller stood up to announce the promotions. He started with the junior positions, and with each name, my heart beat a little faster. Finally, he got to the senior manager role. He cleared his throat. He looked out at the crowd, and for a split second, his eyes met mine. There was something strange in his expression. It wasn't excitement. It was pity. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. "The new senior marketing manager," he announced, "is Mark." Mark, my colleague. He was good at his job, but he had 2 years less experience than I did. He hadn't led the big projects I had. The room erupted in polite applause. People were patting Mark on the back. I felt my face freeze into a tight, plastic smile. I clapped along with everyone else, my hands feeling like they belonged to someone else. I could feel the eyes of my team on me. They were all expecting my name. Their confusion was a mirror of my own. I just sat there, my mind a complete blank. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. I could not hear a single word. All I could see was that look of pity on my boss's face. After the meeting, people came up to me. They offered quiet condolences as if someone had died. "I was so sure it was you," one of my coworkers whispered. "This is a huge surprise." I just nodded, unable to form words. I needed to get out of there. I packed up my things, my movements stiff and robotic. Just as I was about to leave, Mr. Miller's assistant stopped me. "Mr. Miller would like to see you in his office," she said softly. I walked into his office, my legs feeling like lead. He was standing by the window, his back to me. He did not turn around for a long time. The silence was heavy and suffocating. Finally, he spoke. "Anna, please, have a seat." I sat down, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. He turned to face me, and that look was back. "I know you're disappointed," he began, "and you have every right to be. You are an exceptional employee." "Then why?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Why didn't I get it?" He sighed and sat down behind his desk. He steepled his fingers, avoiding my gaze. "Your performance is not in question, Anna. Your work is stellar. But a management role comes with a great deal of pressure, a lot of stress." I was confused. I can handle stress. I have been handling it for 6 years. "Yes," he said slowly. "But I have recently received some information that gives me pause. I have concerns about your well-being, about your ability to maintain a healthy work-life balance under increased pressure." My mind reeled. Where was this coming from? "What information? Who told you this?" I asked, my voice getting a little stronger. "I can't disclose the source," he said, looking deeply uncomfortable. "But it was someone who cares about you a great deal. Someone who is worried you're pushing yourself too hard. They expressed concerns that you're overwhelmed, that you're not sleeping, that you're on the verge of burning out." None of this was true. I was tired sometimes, yes. Everyone who worked hard was tired sometimes. But I was not overwhelmed. I was not burning out. I was thriving. "That's not true," I said firmly. "I love my job. I am not burning out." "I appreciate that," Mr. Miller said, his tone final. "But the decision has been made. I need to do what's best for the team and for you. I hope you can understand." I did not understand. I left his office in a daze. It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Someone had lied to him. Someone had sabotaged me. But who? And why? I walked through the city streets, not really seeing anything. The world felt muted, gray. My mind kept replaying his words. Someone who cares about you a great deal. Who cared about me enough to do this? The thought was terrifying. It meant the betrayal was personal. When I finally got home, I collapsed onto my couch. The silence of my apartment was deafening. I needed to talk to someone. I needed to make sense of it all. I picked up my phone to call my best friend, Sarah, but my finger hovered over my mom's name. I needed my mom. I needed her to tell me everything would be okay. I pressed the call button. She answered on the second ring. "Hi, sweetie? How did it go? Did you get it?" she asked, her voice bright and cheerful. The sound of her voice made the tears I had been holding back finally spill over. "No," I sobbed. "They gave it to Mark." There was a pause on the other end of the line. It was just a little too long. When she spoke again, her voice was different. It was softer, calmer. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry to hear that, but, maybe it's for the best." Her words hit me like a splash of cold water. "For the best? How is this for the best, Mom?" "Well," she said, her voice taking on a soothing, almost rehearsed quality. "You've been so stressed lately, working all those long hours. You barely have time for yourself. Maybe this is the universe's way of telling you to slow down." I sat up straight. Her words sounded eerily familiar. They echoed what Mr. Miller had said. Stressed, overwhelmed. "What do you mean I've been stressed?" I asked, my voice sharp. "I told you I was excited about this. I told you I was ready." "I know, sweetie, but a mother knows," she said. "I can hear it in your voice. You're tired. This new job would have only made it worse. Your health is more important than any job." A horrible suspicion began to form in my mind. It was so monstrous, so unthinkable that I almost dismissed it. But it lingered. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling, "did you talk to anyone at my work?" Another pause. This one was even longer than the first. "Of course not, Anna. Why would I do that?" Her denial was too quick, too high-pitched. "Mom," I repeated, my voice cold and hard, "did you call Mr. Miller?" The silence that followed was my answer. It stretched on, filled with unspoken guilt. When she finally spoke, her voice was small, defensive. "I was just worried about you. I called to ask how you were doing, to see if he thought you were taking on too much. I was just being a concerned mother." The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. I could not breathe. My own mother. She had done this. She had called my boss and planted these seeds of doubt. She had destroyed the opportunity I had worked so hard for, and she was trying to tell me it was because she loved me. The betrayal was so deep. It felt like a physical wound. I sat there, on my couch, in the deafening silence of my apartment, and I realized my life had just changed forever. I had to do something. I could not let this stand. I ended the call without another word. I just hung up. For a long time, I stared at the wall. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by a slow, burning anger. She had not been concerned. She had been controlling. This was not the first time she had done something like this, I realized. It was just the most blatant. My mind flashed back to high school. I had been a promising soccer player. The state team was holding tryouts. I was nervous, but excited. The day before the tryouts, I came down with a minor cold, a sniffle, a slight cough. My mom insisted I was too sick to go. I argued with her, telling her I was fine. The next morning, she told me she had already called the coach and told him I had the flu and would not be able to make it. She said she did it to protect my health. I was devastated. I missed my chance. She had framed it as love then, too, and there were other smaller things. The time I was planning a trip with friends after graduation, and she called the parents of my friends to express her concerns about the safety of the destination, causing 2 of them to back out and the trip to be canceled. The time I was offered a great apartment and she pointed out every tiny flaw until I started to doubt myself and let the offer expire. Each time she had claimed she was just looking out for me. Each time I had felt a little smaller, a little less capable. I had never put it all together before. I had always believed she had my best interests at heart. Now I saw it for what it was. It was not about my well-being. It was about her control. She did not want me to be too successful, too independent. She wanted me to need her. The anger was a fire in my chest. It burned away the tears and the shock. It gave me clarity. I could not let her get away with this. This was not just about a promotion anymore. This was about my entire life. I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew would understand. Sarah. She answered immediately. Anna, I saw the email. I'm so sorry. I'm on my way over with wine and ice cream. I need more than wine, Sarah, I said, my voice steady. I know who did it. I know who sabotaged me. There was a pause. Who? She asked. It was my mother, I said. The silence on the other end of the line was absolute. Then, a string of curses that made me almost smile. You're kidding me, Sarah finally said. Your own mother? How do you know? I explained the phone call. I told her about Mr. Miller's vague explanation and my mom's strangely familiar words. I told her about the long pauses and the flimsy denial. By the time I finished, Sarah was practically shouting into the phone. That is not concern, Anna. That is sabotage. Pure and simple. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, I admitted. But I'm not going to let this go. I can't. Good, Sarah said firmly. You shouldn't. But you need to be smart about this. You can't just go in there screaming. You need a plan. You need proof. She was right. My word against my mother's, no one would believe me. Everyone saw her as the perfect, caring mom. She had cultivated that image for decades. I needed something undeniable, something that would expose her not just to me, but to everyone she had fooled. What kind of proof? I asked. I don't know, Sarah said. An email, a text, a recorded confession. We need to think. First things first. I'm coming over. Don't talk to her again until we have a plan. Don't answer her calls. Don't reply to her texts. We need to control the flow of information. An hour later, Sarah was at my door with 2 bottles of wine and a determined look on her face. We sat at my kitchen table, a notepad between us. We spent hours dissecting the situation. We made a list of every person who could be involved or who could help. My boss, Mr. Miller, my dad, David, my mom's sister, my Aunt Susan. We talked about my mom's personality, her motivations, her weaknesses. Her greatest weakness, we decided, was her public image. She cared more than anything about what other people thought of her. She needed to be seen as the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect friend. That was her vulnerability, and that was what we would target. Our first step, we decided, was to talk to my dad. He was the classic enabler. He loved my mom, and he hated conflict. He always smoothed things over, always took her side, always told me I was being too sensitive. But he was also a decent man. If I could make him see the truth, he might be an ally. It was a long shot, but I had to try. The next day, I called him. I asked if we could meet for coffee. I told him it was important. He sounded hesitant, which told me my mom had already gotten to him. She had probably spun some story about how I had misunderstood her, how I was overreacting. We met at a small cafe near his office. He looked nervous. He fiddled with his coffee cup, avoiding my eyes. "What's this about, Anna?" he asked. I took a deep breath. "I know what Mom did," I said, keeping my voice calm and even. "I know she called Mr. Miller and cost me my promotion." He flinched. "Now, Anna, your mother was just worried. She loves you. You're twisting her intentions." It was the exact response I had expected. "Dad, her intentions don't matter. Her actions do. She went behind my back and interfered in my career. She lied to my boss about my mental state. That is not love. That is sabotage." "Sabotage is a strong word," he said, shaking his head. "She didn't mean any harm. She just worries you're taking on too much." "Did she tell you that?" I asked. "Did she tell you she was just worried?" "Yes," he said. "She was very upset after your phone call. She said you were cruel to her. I felt a surge of anger, but I pushed it down. I had to stay calm. Dad, think about it. Has she ever done anything like this before? Has she ever interfered in my life because she was worried? I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. He knew. He remembered the soccer tryouts. He remembered the canceled trip. He had been there for all of it, but he had always chosen to look the other way. She's your mother, he said weakly. She just wants what's best for you. No, I said, leaning forward. She wants what's best for her. She wants me to be dependent on her. She is scared of me being truly independent. And you, Dad, you let her do it. You enable her. He looked stunned, as if I had slapped him. That's not fair, Anna, isn't it? I pressed. When she called my coach in high school, what did you do? You told me to get over it. When she ruined my graduation trip, what did you do? You told me she meant well. Every single time, you have taken her side. You have taught her that her behavior is acceptable. You are part of the problem. He was silent. He just stared into his coffee cup. I knew I had hit a nerve. I had broken through the wall of denial, even if just for a moment. I need your help, Dad, I said, my voice softening. I need you to tell me the truth. What exactly did she say to you after she called my boss? He looked up at me, his eyes full of conflict. I could see him weighing his loyalty to my mother against the truth in my words. She said she told him you were a wonderful worker, he mumbled, but that you were under a lot of personal stress. She mentioned you weren't sleeping. She made it sound like she was confiding in him, asking for his advice on how to help you. It was worse than I thought. She had not just expressed a vague concern, she had constructed a detailed lie. She had painted a picture of me as a fragile, unstable wreck. And you believed her? I asked. I didn't know what to believe, he admitted. She can be very convincing. I know, I said, but now you know the truth. I'm not falling apart. I was thriving, and she took that away from me. So I'm asking you, Dad, are you going to help me, or are you going to keep protecting her? He didn't answer. He just sat there, looking older and more tired than I had ever seen him. I knew I couldn't push him any further. I had planted the seed of doubt. Now I had to let it grow. I paid for the coffee and left, leaving him alone with his thoughts. It was a small victory, but it was a start. My next step was to get something more concrete. My dad's secondhand account was not enough. I needed to go back to the source. I needed to talk to Mr. Miller again. This time, I requested a formal meeting with both him and a representative from Human Resources. I knew this would be a risky move. It could backfire. It could make me look like a disgruntled employee who could not accept a decision. But I had to take the chance. Sarah helped me prepare. We role-played the conversation. She played Mr. Miller, and I practiced staying calm and professional. I wrote down my key points. I was not there to complain. I was there to correct a falsehood that was impacting my career. The meeting was in a sterile, impersonal conference room. Mr. Miller looked uncomfortable. The HR representative, a woman named Brenda, looked neutral and observant. I started by thanking them for their time. I am not here to challenge the decision about the promotion, I said, which was a lie, but a necessary one. I am here because I am concerned about the information that was shared with you regarding my personal well-being. I believe I have been the victim of a malicious and false representation of my character. Brenda raised an eyebrow. Those are serious allegations, Anna. I know, I said, and I do not make them lightly. Mr. Miller, you told me that the information came from someone who cares about me. I have reason to believe that this person is my mother, and I have reason to believe that she intentionally misled you in order to prevent me from getting this promotion. Mr. Miller shifted in his chair. Anna, I cannot confirm or deny the identity of the person I spoke with. It was a private conversation. I understand that, I said, but the content of that conversation is now affecting my professional reputation. Were you told that I was having trouble sleeping? That I was on the verge of a breakdown? He looked at Brenda, who gave him a slight nod. There were concerns expressed along those lines, yes, he admitted. And did this information directly influence your decision to promote Mark instead of me? I asked. Looking him straight in the eye, he hesitated. It was a factor, he said finally. A manager needs to be resilient. I had to consider the possibility that the pressure would be too much for you. I see, I said, my voice cold. So, a decision about my career, which I have dedicated 6 years of my life to, was based on an unsubstantiated, third-party claim about my mental health, a claim that I was never given the opportunity to address. Brenda spoke up. Anna, where are you going with this? I am going here, I said, leaning forward. That claim was a lie, a deliberate lie, and I can prove it. But before I do, I want to know what the company's policy is on making personnel decisions based on hearsay from non-employees. Brenda's expression sharpened. She knew exactly where I was going. I was not just challenging a promotion, I was questioning the legality of their decision-making process. I had them on the back foot. All decisions are made based on a holistic review of a candidate's qualifications and readiness, she said, reciting the corporate line. And does that holistic review include secret phone calls with relatives? I countered. Mr. Miller looked mortified. It was not a secret phone call, Anna. It was a call from a concerned mother. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was protecting you. You weren't protecting me, I said. You were enabling my saboteur. All I'm asking for is a chance to set the record straight. I want to formally submit a complaint that my professional standing has been damaged by a false report, and I want that complaint to be investigated. Brenda nodded slowly. You have the right to do that. You will need to provide any evidence you have to support your claim. I will, I said, standing up. You will have it within the week. I left the meeting feeling a surge of adrenaline. I had done it. I had turned the tables. Now they were the ones who were on notice, but I had also made a promise to provide evidence, and right now, I still had nothing concrete. I had my dad's reluctant admission, but that was not enough. I needed something from my mother herself, and I knew there was only one way I was going to get it. I had to trap her. My plan was simple, but it had to be executed perfectly. I needed to get my mother to admit what she had done, and I needed to record it. I knew she would never admit it if she thought I was angry. I had to play the part of the wounded, confused daughter. I had to make her feel safe. I had to make her feel like she was in control. I waited 2 days. I let her calls go to voicemail. I ignored her texts, which grew increasingly frantic. Anna, please call me. I'm so worried. Sweetheart, we need to talk. This is just a big misunderstanding. Are you okay? I'm going to come over if I don't hear from you. Finally, after 48 hours of silence, I sent her a single text message. Can we talk tonight? I'm just so confused. She replied almost instantly. Of course, sweetie. I'll be over at 7. I'll bring dinner. She was walking right into my trap. I spent the rest of the day preparing. I set up my phone to record audio, and I hid it in a fruit bowl on the coffee table. I practiced what I was going to say. I had to sound vulnerable, not accusatory. I had to make her want to explain herself. I had to give her enough rope to hang herself with. At 7 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath and opened the door. My mom was standing there, holding a casserole dish and wearing a look of deep, theatrical concern. Oh, Anna, she said, rushing in to hug me. I let her. I stood stiffly in her arms, my body rigid. She pulled back, her face a mask of sympathy. You look exhausted. You see? This is what I was worried about. She had started already. I led her into the living room. She set the casserole on the coffee table, right next to the hidden phone. Perfect. I don't understand, Mom, I began, my voice quiet and shaky. I was a better actor than I thought. Mr. Miller said someone called him. He said they were worried about me. Was it you? She sighed, a long, mournful sound. Yes, sweetie, it was me. I told you. I was just so worried. But what did you say to him? I asked, looking at her with wide, innocent eyes. He made it sound so serious. He made it sound like I was having a breakdown. This was the critical part. I was feeding her a line, a more extreme version of what Mr. Miller had implied. I was hoping she would correct me, and in doing so, reveal the truth. She fell for it completely. She shook her head vigorously. "Oh no, sweetheart. I would never say that." "A breakdown? Of course not." "That's ridiculous." He must have misunderstood. "I just told him you were overwhelmed. I said you weren't sleeping well, that you were under a lot of pressure, and that I was worried the new job would be too much for you. I was just trying to protect you." I had it. It was all there. A clear, unambiguous confession of what she had said and why she had said it. She had admitted to misrepresenting my state of mind with the express purpose of influencing the promotion decision. It was more than I could have hoped for. I kept my face neutral. I had to see this through. "But why wouldn't you talk to me first, Mom? Why would you go behind my back?" "You wouldn't have listened," she said, her voice taking on a slightly patronizing tone. "You're so stubborn, so ambitious. You don't always know what's best for you. Sometimes a mother has to step in." "So you decided for me," I said, my voice flat. "I helped guide the situation towards a better outcome for you," she corrected. "You'll thank me for this one day, when you're not so stressed and tired. Now, let's eat. I made your favorite." I felt a wave of nausea. She was so confident, so sure of her righteousness. She had no idea that she had just handed me the weapon that would destroy her. I made it through the rest of the evening in a fog. I picked at the casserole. I let her talk, filling the silence with her endless stream of unsolicited advice and veiled criticisms. I was a dutiful daughter, playing my part. As soon as she left, I rushed to the fruit bowl and grabbed my phone. I stopped the recording and played it back. Her voice filled the room, clear as a bell. "I just told him you were overwhelmed. I was just trying to protect you." I saved the file. I backed it up to the cloud. I emailed it to myself and to Sarah. I had my proof. The next morning, I sent the audio file to Brenda in HR with a simple email. "Here's the evidence I mentioned. I look forward to hearing about the results of your investigation." The fallout was swift. 2 days later, I was called into another meeting with Brenda and Mr. Miller. The atmosphere was completely different. Mr. Miller looked pale and shaken. Brenda was all business. "Anna," she said, "we have reviewed the audio file you sent. We have also had a follow-up conversation with Mr. Miller. It is clear that an error in judgment was made. A serious one." She looked at Mr. Miller, who cleared his throat. "Anna, I want to offer you my sincerest apology," he said, his voice strained. "I was manipulated. I allowed an outside party to influence a professional decision. There is no excuse for my actions. I should have spoken to you directly. I deeply regret the distress this has caused you." Brenda took over. "The company takes this matter very seriously. We have completed our investigation. The decision to promote Mark has been rescinded. The senior marketing manager position is being offered to you, effective immediately. We will also be providing you with back pay to the date of the original announcement." I felt a wave of relief, so powerful it almost made me dizzy. I had won. I had actually won. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady. "I accept the position." "There is one more thing," Brenda said. "Mr. Miller will be taking a mandatory management training course on professional boundaries and decision-making. Furthermore, a formal note of this incident will be placed in his file." I looked at my boss. He looked utterly defeated. I felt a flicker of something, not pity, but a kind of grim satisfaction. He had been a fool. He had let my mother's manipulations cloud his judgment, but he was also a victim in this, in a way. The true villain was still out there, completely unaware of the storm that was about to break. My plan was not complete. Reclaiming my job was only half the battle. The other half was about justice. It was about making sure my mother could never do this to me, or to anyone else, ever again. And for that, I needed a bigger stage. I needed an audience. I spent the next week settling into my new role. I worked hard. I proved that I was more than capable of handling the pressure. My team was thrilled to have me as their manager. Mark was surprisingly gracious. He admitted he had been surprised by the original decision, and that he felt I'd earned it. The office slowly returned to normal. But at home, My phone was buzzing constantly. My mother was leaving desperate voicemails. My father was sending pleading texts. "Anna, please talk to your mother. She is a complete wreck." I ignored them all. I was waiting for the right moment. The moment came in the form of an invitation. My grandmother's 80th birthday party. The entire family would be there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. It was the perfect stage. My mother would be there, playing the role of the devoted daughter, the matriarch in training. She would be surrounded by the people whose opinions she valued most. It was time for her public performance to have its final act. I told my father I would be there. He was relieved. "Oh, good," he said. "Your mother will be so happy." I let him think this was a reconciliation. I let him believe that everything was going to go back to normal. The day of the party, I was calm. I chose my outfit carefully. A simple, elegant dress. I wanted to look confident, not confrontational. When I arrived, the party was in full swing. My mother saw me from across the room. Her face lit up with a desperate, hopeful smile. She rushed over to me. "Anna, you came!" she said, trying to hug me. I took a small step back. "Of course I came, Mom," I said, my voice polite but cool. "It's Grandma's birthday." Her smile faltered. She searched my face, looking for a sign of forgiveness. She found none. She spent the next hour hovering near me, trying to engage me in small talk, trying to act as if nothing had happened. I gave her nothing. I was polite, distant, and I spoke to everyone but her. I could see her growing more and more agitated. Her performance was faltering. Finally, it was time for the toasts. My uncle gave a lovely speech about my grandmother. A few cousins shared funny stories. Then my mother stood up, a glass of champagne in her hand. She was going to give the main toast. This was her moment. She started by talking about what a wonderful role model my grandmother had been. She talked about the importance of family, of love, of support. "My mother taught me that the most important thing in life is to take care of your children," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "To protect them, to always do what's best for them, even if they don't understand it at the time." As she spoke, she looked directly at me. It was a message, a justification, a final, desperate attempt to frame her actions as noble. The room was silent, hanging on her every word. When she finished, there was a round of applause. People were dabbing their eyes. My mother was glowing, her performance a resounding success. She had successfully cast herself as the selfless, loving mother. Then I stood up. "I'd like to make a toast, too," I said, my voice clear and carrying across the room. A hush fell over the guests. My mother looked at me, a flicker of apprehension in her eyes. My father looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. I raised my glass. "I'd like to toast my mother," I began. Everyone smiled. They thought this was the reconciliation they had been waiting for. "I want to thank her for taking such a keen interest in my career." My mother's smile became a little more fixed. "She has always been so involved," I continued. "In fact, she was so concerned about my well-being recently that she took it upon herself to call my boss. She told him that I was overwhelmed, that I couldn't handle stress, and that I wasn't sleeping. She did this right before I was supposed to get a major promotion, a promotion I had worked for 6 years. The smiles in the room vanished. People were exchanging confused glances. My mother's face went white. "Anna, what are you doing?" she whispered, her voice a strangled hiss. I ignored her. I kept my eyes on the rest of the family. "Because of my mother's concern," I said, making air quotes with my fingers, "my boss gave the promotion to someone else. He thought he was protecting me from a breakdown that was a complete fiction invented by my mother because she couldn't stand the thought of me being successful on my own terms." The room was utterly silent now. You could have heard a pin drop. My Aunt Susan was staring at my mother, her mouth hanging open. My grandmother looked horrified. My mother found her voice. "That's not true," she cried, her voice shrill. "You're twisting things. I was just worried." "Were you worried, Mom?" I asked, my voice dangerously soft. "Or were you controlling, just like you were when you called my soccer coach and told him I was too sick for tryouts? Or when you sabotaged my graduation trip?" My mother looked around the room, her eyes wide with panic. She was looking for support, for someone to defend her. But she found only shocked and accusing faces. Her perfect image was shattering right before her eyes. "She's lying!" my mother shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at me. "She's always been dramatic. She's making this all up." "Am I?" I said calmly. I reached into my purse and took out my phone. "Then I guess everyone should hear this. It's a recording of our little chat the other night, the one where you admit to everything." I held up the phone. I didn't even have to press play. The sight of it was enough. My mother let out a small, strangled sob. The fight went out of her. She crumpled, her face a mask of utter devastation. She had been exposed. Her greatest fear had come true. Everyone knew. I didn't play the recording. I didn't need to. I had made my point. I put my phone back in my purse. "To my mother," I said, raising my glass again. "May she finally learn to focus on her own life and let me live mine." I took a sip of my champagne and then set the glass down. I walked over to my grandmother, gave her a kiss on the cheek, and wished her a happy birthday. Then, without looking at my mother again, I walked out of the party. I could feel the eyes of my entire family on my back. But for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. The war was over, and I had won. The days following the party were a strange mix of chaos and calm. My phone was inundated with calls and texts from relatives. My Aunt Susan called to apologize. "I had no idea, Anna," she said, her voice full of shame. "I knew she could be overbearing, but I never imagined she would do something so cruel. I am so sorry I never saw it." I told her it wasn't her fault. My mother had fooled everyone for a very long time. My cousins reached out too. Some were supportive. Others were just shocked. The family was fractured. Lines were being drawn. The perfect family facade my mother had so carefully constructed had been demolished in a single evening. My father called me a few days later. He sounded exhausted. "Your mother hasn't left her room," he said. "She won't talk to anyone." "That's her choice, Dad," I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. "Anna, this has gone too far," he said. "You've humiliated her. You've destroyed this family." "No, Dad," I corrected him. "She did that. She destroyed her own reputation with her actions. And you helped her by letting it happen for years. The only thing I did was turn on the light so everyone could see the truth." There was a long silence. "What do you want from me, Anna?" he finally asked, his voice small. "I want you to stop enabling her," I said firmly. "I want you to tell her that her behavior was wrong and that it needs to stop. I want you to support me, your daughter, for once. And if you can't do that, then I don't think we can have a relationship." It was an ultimatum, and we both knew it. He didn't answer right away. I'll think about it," he said, and hung up. A week later, he called back. "I spoke to her," he said. "I told her she needs to get help. I told her she needs to apologize to you, without excuses or justifications. I told her that I would not cover for her anymore." I felt a small, surprising flicker of hope. "And what did she say?" I asked. "She didn't say anything," he admitted. "She just cried, but it's a start. I'm going to start going to therapy, Anna, for myself, to figure out why I let this go on for so long, and I hope, one day, you can forgive me." "I'm glad you're getting help, Dad," I said, and I meant it. That's a good first step. My life at work, in contrast, was better than it had ever been. I excelled in my new role. I felt a confidence I had never felt before. I was no longer second-guessing myself, no longer worried about what someone else might think. The experience, as horrible as it was, had forged me into someone stronger. I had faced the ultimate betrayal, and I had not only survived, I had triumphed. I didn't hear from my mother directly for over a month. Then one day a letter arrived. It was in her familiar, looping handwriting. My first instinct was to throw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. It was a long, rambling letter. It was full of self-pity and excuses. She wrote about how hard it was to be a mother, how she had only ever wanted to protect me. She wrote about how hurt she was, how I had publicly shamed her. But buried in the middle of all the justifications, There were 2 words I had never expected to see. I'm sorry. It wasn't a real apology. It was an I'm sorry you feel that way kind of apology. But it was there. It was a crack in her armor. It was an admission, however small, of wrongdoing. I didn't write back. I didn't call. I put the letter in a drawer and I moved on. Some relationships, I was learning, are not meant to be fixed. They are meant to be outgrown. My relationship with my mother, the one where I was the child and she was the all-knowing protector, was over. What came next? I didn't know. Maybe one day we could build something new, something healthier, based on honesty and respect. Or maybe not. For now, the silence was enough. A few months later, I was having lunch with Sarah. So, she said, leaning forward with a grin. Any new family drama to report? I laughed. Thankfully, no, it's been blissfully quiet. And your dad? She asked. He's still going to therapy, I said. We're talking. Slowly. It's a work in progress. And your mom? I shrugged. I hear she's joined a book club. I guess she needs a new project to manage. Sarah raised her glass. To new projects, she said. I clinked my glass against hers. And to new promotions, I said with a smile. As I sat there, in the sunshine, laughing with my friend, I felt a profound sense of peace. The battle had been long and hard, but it was over. I had fought for my career, for my independence, for my sanity, and I had won. My mother had tried to keep me small, to keep me in a box of her own making, but I had broken free. She had always wanted me to need her. Now she would have to learn to live with the fact that I didn't, and I was just getting started. The next year was a period of incredible growth. My work at the firm flourished. I led a campaign that won a major industry award. Mr. Miller became one of my biggest supporters, almost as if he were trying to atone for his earlier mistake. He gave me autonomy, trusted my instincts, and championed my ideas. Our professional relationship, once strained, was now built on a solid foundation of mutual respect. He had learned his lesson about boundaries, and I had learned to assert mine without apology. My relationship with my father continued to improve, slowly and cautiously. His therapy was helping him understand his role as an enabler. He started calling me not to pass on messages from my mother, but to ask about my life, my work, my happiness. He was learning to be a father to me, not just a husband to her. One day, over coffee, he told me something that stuck with me. I spent so many years trying to keep the peace, he said, that I forgot to stand up for what was right. Peace at any price is not peace at all. It's just a deferred conflict. I'm sorry it took me so long to see that. It was the apology I had really needed. As for my mother, our relationship remained one of distant, polite silence. I saw her at obligatory family gatherings, like holidays and birthdays. Our interactions were brief and superficial. She would ask how I was, and I would say, I'm fine, thank you. There was no warmth, no intimacy. The person I had once run to for comfort was now a stranger. I sometimes saw a flicker of sadness in her eyes, a longing for what we had lost, but it was always followed by a stubborn pride, a refusal to truly acknowledge the depth of her betrayal. She had apologized in her letter, but she had never taken true responsibility. She still saw herself as the victim, and as long as she did, there was no path back for us. About a year and a half after the incident, I received an unexpected email. It was from Mark, the colleague who had briefly been given my promotion. He had left the company a few months after I was promoted and moved to a competitor. We had parted on good terms, but we hadn't kept in touch. His email was short. Hi, Anna. Hope you're well. I'm in town for a conference and was wondering if you'd be free to grab a coffee. There's something I think you should know. I was intrigued. We met the next day at a cafe. After some initial small talk, he got to the point. I never felt right about how that whole promotion thing went down, he said. Even before you were given the job, it all felt off. What do you mean? I asked. Mr. Miller was acting strangely, he explained. He was so enthusiastic about you for months. Then overnight, it was like a switch flipped. And after the announcement, when there was so much confusion, he pulled me aside. He told me that he had made the decision based on some sensitive, personal information, and that he hoped I would be a steady hand for the team. This was new. I'd never heard this part of the story. But here's the thing that's been bothering me all this time, Mark continued. A few weeks after you were rightfully given the job, I was cleaning out my old desk. I found a notepad that had been left behind by the previous occupant. On it was a list of names and numbers. One of them was my mother's. I stared at him, confused. What does your mother have to do with anything? He shook his head. Not my mother. Your mother, Carol. Her name and number were on that notepad. And next to it, in what I recognized as Mr. Miller's handwriting, were the words, "Follow up Ray, Anna's stress levels." The coffee cup in my hand trembled slightly. He wrote that down? He did, Mark confirmed. I didn't know what to do with it at the time. It felt like a bomb. I ended up taking a new job shortly after, and I just put it out of my mind. But I kept the page. I don't know why. I guess I felt like you deserved to know the full extent of it. It wasn't just a phone call, Anna. It sounds like they might have spoken more than once. He was actively seeking out her opinion on your fitness for the job. Mark pulled a folded piece of paper from his wallet and slid it across the table. There it was. My mother's name, her phone number, and those damning words. It was physical proof. It was no longer just my word or a secret recording. It was a written record of their collusion. I felt a fresh wave of anger, but it was different this time. It was colder, more detached. The initial fiery rage had burned out, leaving behind a core of solid steel. This piece of paper didn't change what I'd done, but it validated it completely. It was the final piece of the puzzle. Why are you showing me this now? I asked Mark. He shrugged. I don't know. I guess I just believe in karma. And I think you deserve to have all the facts. What you do with it is up to you. I took the piece of paper. Thank you, Mark, I said. This means a lot. I walked home from the cafe, the note clutched in my hand. What should I do with it? Should I send a copy to my mother, to my father, to Brenda in HR? What would be the point? I had already won. The battle was over. Dragging it all up again would only cause more pain. But then I thought about it differently. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about closure. This was about ensuring that the official record was not just about a single, misguided phone call, but about a pattern of inappropriate contact that had been taken seriously by management. This was about protecting not just myself, but anyone else who might find themselves in a similar situation in the future. The next day, I scanned the note and emailed it to Brenda. I wrote, Brenda, I am forwarding this to you for your records. It was recently brought to my attention, and I feel it provides important context to the incident that occurred last year. It seems the communication between Mr. Miller and my mother was not a one-time event. I trust that this will reinforce the importance of the training and policies that were put in place. No further action is required on my part. I consider the matter closed. I didn't copy Mr. Miller. I knew Brenda would handle it, and I knew that this would be the final nail in the coffin of his professional judgment on the matter. It would be a permanent part of the record, a quiet, unassailable fact. A few weeks later, my father asked me to have dinner with him, just the two of us. He told me he had something important to tell me. He said my mother had finally agreed to go to therapy. She had been resistant for a long time, but something had shifted. He didn't know what. I knew. It was the silence. It was the loss of control. It was the slow, dawning realization that her manipulations no longer worked. She had run out of moves. Her only path forward was to look inward. That's good news, Dad, I said. I hope it helps her. I hope so too, he said. He looked at me, his eyes full of a sad, newfound wisdom. You know, for the longest time, I thought her greatest fear was something happening to you, but I was wrong. Her greatest fear was you not needing her. I nodded. I know. We finished our dinner in a comfortable silence. The war was truly over now. The fallout had settled. The pieces had been picked up. I had my career. I had a new, healthier relationship with my father, and I had my freedom. The final, lingering unease was gone. It had been replaced by a quiet strength. I had learned that love and control are not the same thing. I had learned that family is not an excuse for betrayal. And I had learned that I was capable of fighting for myself and winning. My mother had set out to prove that I was too weak to handle a promotion. Instead, I had proven that I was strong enough to handle her, and that was the greatest victory of all. I had stopped waiting for her permission to be powerful. I had just taken it. The unsettling quiet from her side of the family was no longer unsettling. It was peace. It was the sound of a boundary finally and firmly in place. She had wanted to be the center of my world, the one I ran to for everything. Now she was just a distant star, a faint light from a past I had moved beyond. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. I had made mine, and I was thriving.